Hello everyone, and welcome to the Hearts online experience. If we haven't met yet, I'm Alex, and I am so excited that you decided to join us for church here today whenever you're watching. Now, before we get started, I just want to invite you to do two things with us. Now, if you're watching with us live, you'll notice just to the right of your screen, we're all chatting up in the live chat there. So if you're here with us, and I know it may be scary, but please go say hi because we really want to meet you. And if you're watching us outside of the main experience time, go ahead and leave a comment down below so we can get connected that way. Now, these past few weeks, I've been able to reflect on one of our core values here at the Heart, welcoming. And as you've noticed, we've been in this new message series called Interrupted. And I've never really thought about the interruptions in my life until this series and how welcoming it could be to accept those emotions that come with the interruptions that happen in your life, and how important it is for you to accept those interruptions with the community around you. And so right now, I want to encourage you to join in some of that connection with your community, talk about the interruptions happening in your life, and share this YouTube link with two people that you would love to join church with you today, and the experience will continue in just a few moments.
Hey guys, and welcome to another Heart online experience. You might know my twin brother, Matt Worthington. He's got a big, long beard. You probably recognize him. Just kidding. It's me. It's Matt Worthington. I trimmed up a little bit. This isn't a cry for help or anything during quarantine. Everything's good. I just wanted to trim the beard. So if I haven't met you before, my name is Matt Worthington, one of the many leaders here at the Heart, and we're so glad to have you here with us this morning. We always take time every Sunday to give you guys some music to listen to throughout the week. Those will be dropped below in the description. But today I wanted to highlight real quick a song by Elevation Worship called Overcome. So I know 2020 has been rough. We talk about it all the time. There's a lot of ups and downs, and it's just a crazy year. But this song's pretty powerful, and it's a good song to lean into because it's talking about how God has overcome. Jesus rose from the grave, and He won. Woo! So we all win. So it's just something to give you a little positivity and to help you through life when things are a little down. So take some time this week to check that song out. I think you'll really like it. If you've been to the Heart in person before when we met at the spot, we've played this song a million times, so it'll definitely be familiar to a lot of you guys. The Heart online experience will continue in just a few moments, and love you guys.
I wasn't expecting an interruption in my life. It changed everything.
I felt a little lost because I had this plan, and when it didn't happen, I was like, what do I do now?
The emotions that I felt during that time were fear,
stress, anxiety, hopelessness.
I was excited, but also anxious.
The hardest part of that experience was not knowing the end result.
A sense of loss.
Feeling completely alone, like no one else was going through this.
Feeling like I had to start over.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today at the Heart for our online church experience. I hope you're having a great weekend. And if you're watching with us live, give us a shout out in the chat so we can say hello. I hope you've had your coffee and your breakfast, or maybe you're eating breakfast now while you're watching. What a cool time to be able to do things like that. My name is Dominic Insenius. I'm the leader at the Heart, and we are in the middle of a message series called Interrupted. And in this series, what we're doing is we're talking about the interruptions in our life, how they affect us, how they affect the people around us, and what we can do with those interruptions. Now, today, Michaela is going to be bringing a message to you guys, and I want you to be able to be taking notes here, okay? When you're watching these, expect to get something out of them. When you're watching a message or listening to a message, expect something. Expect God to move in you. Expect to learn something. So be taking notes today. Now, before we get into Michaela's message, a few quick things I wanted to share with you. We are doing something right now called Community Night. Usually we have Connect groups throughout the year, and in the summer we take a break. And what we're doing right now in place of that Connect group is Community Night, where very, very loose. It's an open conversation. It's about an hour long on Mondays at 7 p.m. We want to invite you to be a part of that if you are needing a place to connect with others. It's all on Zoom. That's kind of we're doing that for safety's sake still. So connect with others, kind of talk through what's on your mind, what you're experiencing, what you're going through, and to catch up with the people around us. One of the key things that we're missing, not being able to be with each other on Sundays, is not being able to catch up with the people that we love to talk to and love to be around. So I want to invite you to Community Nights at 7 p.m. And right after the message today at 10:30, we're doing our Heart Kids experience on Zoom. So if you have little ones or you've been doing that with us, make sure you jump on that. Alex Temez, our amazing Heart Kids leader, and her team have something ready for the kids today. So that's at 10:30. So make sure you check that out. If you have kids or know anyone that has kids, you can recommend that they check it out. Now, before we get to Michaela, what I've asked some of you to do is to share your story of when life was interrupted for you. A time in your life that was interrupted. You had to learn from it. You had to walk through this interruption and how it affected you. So right now what I want to do is I want to share a story of, her name is Celeste Munoz, and it's a story of her and her husband Jonathan and their two beautiful kids, and kind of a story of what it's like to be interrupted, to face that interruption together as a family, as a community, and how we can grow from the interruptions that seem to derail our life, and how a fresh perspective can help us to grow from that. Remember, an interruption is an opportunity. So let's take a minute and hear the Munoz story.
My name is Celeste Munoz, and today I wanted to share with you an interruption that I've had in my life. And while I could sit here and tell you many of them, like I was pregnant at 14, I lost financial aid in college, there's so many interruptions, but I think one of the biggest interruptions that I was not expecting was our second child, Jeremiah. He was born my junior year of college. So Jonathan and I had not been planning to have any other kids until I graduated college, and I was in the middle of it. So I think that's what really caught us off guard, was we really weren't planning to have any other kids, and we were actually preventing it. So I think another emotion I really felt was disappointed in myself. Like, how could I have let this happen when it just felt like everything was backwards in my life already? Like, I didn't have a house yet, but I had a husband and a kid, and I was trying to start my life and try to do things right with Jesus, and it just felt like everything came crashing down. And the hardest part for me during that entire experience wasn't even the judgment I faced from people, because trust me, I got a lot of it, but that's not what was hard for me. What was hard for me was actual balancing of taking care of kids and getting your classwork done and making it on time to your finals and that kind of stuff, because I had to care for a newborn and a 5-year-old, and my husband was going to school too, and so we were just kind of like juggling this inconsistent life. And it just felt like my plan was just crumbling to pieces. It felt like my plan was just falling apart. I wanted to do things right. Like, why couldn't my plan just go the way I wanted it to? And so even though that season of my life was really tough and difficult to navigate, there were a lot of ways that I grew from that. One way was realizing that God's plan is a million times better than mine in every scenario. There's no way that I would have ever thought that I could get through even a slight semester with a newborn. And I did it. I made Dean's List. Like, who would have thought? I graduated college on time, and we did get a house, and life is great now. But if you would have asked me in that moment if I thought my life was going to be okay, I definitely would have said no. I'm in the trenches right now. I'm stretched thin. And so God taught me a lot of things through that really difficult season. As I face battles today, because trust me, they don't end. Like I said, I can share a million times where life has seemed like it's been interrupted, COVID being one of them. But one of the things I've realized is that I've gone through some of the hardest times of my life. I've been through some really tough things. And so those things have prepared me for any battle. There's nothing that God can't do in my life. And so as I'm faced with things today and tomorrow, and I always will, I trust that God is going to be fighting that battle right there with me. And so, friends, I want to encourage you and ask you this question. What is interrupting your life? And what do you think God's trying to teach you through it?
Thank you so much, Celeste, for sharing your story of your family, your interruption, and of the growth. I know that when we're able to share each other's stories, it helps us all to look at our interruptions differently. It helps us to look at our interruptions in a way where we can find hope in them. We can find opportunity in them. So thank you for doing that. We're going to have another story for you next week as well. Now, without any further ado, I want you to get ready, to get your mind ready, get set to hear from the amazing Michaela Glover. Make sure you're ready to take notes, and let's see what she has to say. I'm ready. I can't even stand it. I'm ready. Let's give it up for Michaela Glover.
Good morning and welcome to the Hearts Online Experience. I'm Michaela and I am so excited to get to talk with you guys this morning, and I've been loving this series, Interruptions. Can you believe it is already the 4th week and it's already August, which I cannot believe either of those things. Time flies when you're having fun and in quarantine. But I've been loving this series. I think it's been so fun to hear different stories, to hear perspectives from Dom. I've loved being able to share my perspective with y'all. And also hearing from Jen last week was so cool. And hearing from Celeste and Jonathan today. And that is so brave of you guys to be able to share your story with us. And it's so powerful when we get to hear from each other and our community. I mean, it's one of our core values. So I just love that we get to do that. It is so special. And it's cool that this series is something we're all relating to, something we're all going through. So I've just been loving it, and it's fun to be able to connect even when we're not able to see each other in person. But when I was first thinking about this series, of course, an interruption, the first thing I think of is quarantine. But when I think further into my life and what has led me to who I am and especially where I am, an interruption in my life is that when I moved to Texas. So, plot twist, I am not from Texas. I was originally born in Nebraska, and then an interruption happened, and I moved to Ohio when I was 7 years old. But then I lived in Ohio from when I was 7 years old to right before, like kind of a month before I started my senior year of high school. And that move from Ohio to Texas right during my senior year was a big interruption for me. Maybe you're a senior, shout out to the youths, or maybe you can remember being a senior in high school. And I know for me, I was so close to my friends. I was really involved at school. I was a manager of my school's basketball team for 4 years. I was the mascot sometimes. I would do announcing at basketball games. I was in student council, just so involved, loved it there, had my great group of friends that I had since 2nd grade. And I also had my whole future plans, because I was a senior. So, of course, I knew where I wanted to go to school, where I was going to be applying. I even had my friends where we're like, okay, we're going to go to this school. These will be our majors. We're going to join clubs together. We can be roommates. So I had this whole plan. I was so excited. And then this interruption happened with my whole family moving to Texas because my dad got a new job, which ultimately, when I look back on it, was a good thing for my family. But at the time, being 17 and thinking I had it all figured out in Ohio, I was not happy about it. So we moved, and instead of, embracing this change, embracing this interruption, I was kind of like, no, like, this is Texas, this is Ohio, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna stare at my wonderful life. I love Ohio, and I was just looking back on my life. I was just not really into making any friends once I started my school here at Texas. I moved to Canyon Lake, so I was going to Canyon Lake High School, and I wasn't really into making any friends there, but I would always be texting and FaceTiming, calling all my friends from Ohio, still trying to keep up all those connections. And I even was still trying to be involved with my school in Ohio. Like, physically, I was in Texas, but emotionally, socially, mentally, I was still living in Ohio at my old high school. It was so crazy, y'all, that when they did the senior superlatives, like those awards like cutest couple, best dressed, whatever, that everyone votes on, when they did those awards at my old school in Ohio that I had been at, when they did the awards for those for most school spirit, everyone wrote me in, even though I did not go there. So I wasn't on the ballot, like I wasn't able to be voted for or anything, but so many people wrote me in for most school spirit at the school I didn't go to that I ended up winning by a big majority. And so the yearbook staff people and like administration were like, okay, she won by such a majority, she's still trying to be involved here, even though she moved, so we're just gonna have to put her in the yearbook. So they had me send in pictures of myself, and they put me in the yearbook, even though I didn't even go there senior year, but I was still in their yearbook. And meanwhile, at the school I did go to, Canyon Lake, I didn't even get a yearbook. Like, I just did not care about it. I was like, Ohio forever, and I was in their yearbook, which was so crazy. And maybe that's happened to you before you've moved. I know I'm pretty much like that every time I move, because change is hard sometimes. But maybe you've had an interruption, a change, something new happened, and you're kind of on your journey of life, and this interruption happens, and you're like, can't we just be like it was like over here? Can we just go back over here? I don't want this interruption. I don't know what's on the other side of that interruption. I'd rather just look back at my wonderful past and stay over there. I know I've been like that a little bit during quarantine too, like thinking, why can't it be like it was before quarantine? Back when we had church in person and we didn't have to wear masks all the time. And I mean, I totally understand all these things are for safety, but socially, my brain is like, please, can't it be like it was before? But it's okay, one day we'll get there. But I think we all can relate to that, at least on some level. I'm sure you've had some interruption where you did not want to face it. You just wanted to look back on the past. Why can't it be like that? The good old days, as we like to call it. Why can't it be like it was before? And it's not a totally crazy thing. I mean, there's stories in the Bible. I'm sure so many of us relate to it. And also, be sure to be typing in the chat, by the way, if you relate to anything, so we can all just be connecting. Seriously, y'all, I love the chat on YouTube because I feel like we're all in church in like one row, and everyone's like whispering or like passing notes. And I think it's so fun. Maybe when we're in person, we can still keep up the chat, and that way we'll just pass notes down the aisles, talking to each other. But be sure to type in the chat if you've had a time where something new happened and you just were looking back at the good old days, just wanting it like it was before. And there's even stories in the Bible that are about this, so we're not crazy. And one story in the Bible is about a guy named Lot and his family. And the first time I heard about this story, because I don't know if it's a really well-known story, but the first time I ever heard of it was actually in one of my favorite books, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. It's just a fiction book, but I was reading it in high school, and I hadn't had too many encounters with the Bible before then, so I never heard of the story or anything, and hadn't heard of many stories in the Bible. But I was reading in this book, and the main character is at a hotel, and he sees a Bible, and he opens it, just a random page, and he opens it to this story. So I want to read you what he says about this story, because it really piqued my interest when I first read this. And Lot's wife, of course, was told not to look back where all those people in their homes had been, but she did look back, and I love her for that because it was so human. So she was turned to a pillar of salt. So it goes. People aren't supposed to look back. I'm certainly not going to do it anymore. So I read that in this book, and I was like, what? Who is Lot's wife? Why doesn't she have a first name? And also, why was she turned into a pillar of salt? Because she turned around and looked back. What does that even mean? And so I looked more into this story, and we can find this story in the book of Genesis, which is the very first book in the Bible. And in Genesis, there's so many well-known stories that you probably heard as a kid, or you've heard now in different messages and stuff at church. It's very popular stories like creation or Adam and Eve or Noah's Ark. So these things that we know a lot, and sandwiched in there somewhere is this little story about a guy named Lot and Lot's wife who turned to a pillar of salt. So we can find this whole story in Genesis chapter 19. So I want to challenge you, I want to invite you to pull out your phone. I know you already have it on you. Go to the YouVersion Bible app and be sure to be following along with us. You can literally just grab your phone, go to events. I would do it right now, but I'm talking. And there's more. You'll be able to just follow along and see all the verses with us. And then it's super cool because you also can save it in the top right-hand corner, click on save, read it all week, and it's super cool even to talk it with your friends about. So read the story, Genesis chapter 19. And right now I just want to talk about it. So I'm not reading it word for word. But in this story, there's a guy named Lot, obviously, and he's living in this town called Sodom. But next to it is this other town called Gomorrah. So Sodom and Gomorrah, the towns, were, having some problems. God decided to punish them for their sins. And if you read the whole story, you can see that in a lot more detail. But there were a lot of sins, a lot of problems there, and so God's going to destroy it. And he decides to rain down fire. There's going to be sulfur that's on fire. All this crazy stuff is going to happen. But Lot and his family had been loyal to God. They had been trusting God this whole time. And so God's like, you know what? I can't hurt Lot. So he sends angels who are going to come help Lot get him out of the situation. And so these angels come in. Lot's probably just sitting there hanging out with his family, maybe, just talking like you and I are talking right now. And this angel just comes in and is like, hey, God is going to destroy your town. You have to get out of here. We will help you get out of here. And that's a big interruption. I can't imagine. I was just talking about how I have a hard time moving. So I cannot imagine an angel coming in and telling me I have to leave. So this angel comes in and Lot's kind of like, and his wife's kind of hesitant, and he has some daughters, they're kind of like, I don't know. Are you sure? Are you really an angel? Do you have an ID? I don't know. I would wonder that. And so this angel is telling them they have to leave, and the angel's like, we don't have time for this. We don't have time to talk. We have to get out of here. So the angel grabs Lot, grabs his wife and his daughters, and takes them out of the town. They're out of the city limits, and once they're kind of out of the city limits, the angels are like, okay, we have a safe town of refuge you can go to. God wants to protect you, so go over here. It's a small town. It's called Zor. You can go there. You'll be safe. And it seems like, well, that sounds like a good plan. And the angels are like, well, there's one condition. Just don't look back. So your towns are going to be destroyed. Sodom and Gomorrah are going to be rained down, fire, sulfur. Just don't look back, or you'll be consumed and destroyed too. Just go forward. Go ahead. Go to Zor and you'll be safe. That's the plan God has for you. And they're like, okay, guess that's where we have to go. So they're running and they're going to Zor. And when they're about to get into Zor, they really see this crazy fire, sulfur on fire, everything. Sodom and Gomorrah are getting destroyed. And Lot's wife is kind of slowing down. She starts trailing behind. And she does exactly what the angels said not to do. That one condition. She turns and looks back longingly. One of my favorite versions of the Bible is the Amplified version. I challenge you to read this story in that version. It's so good, and it explains how she's looking back longingly. She's looking back, and even though she'd been told not to, I'm sure you see her places she'd gone, maybe stores she'd gone to, her friends' houses on fire, people she knew dying in her town, and no matter what happened there, it's scary to see that. And so she looks back, and the Bible says she was turned to a pillar of salt. Which I've always read this story, and y'all, I've always thought of it so literally, and thought that, maybe Lot would turn around and be like, honey, where are you? And she's literally table salt from a restaurant or something. But I did a little bit of research. Researching the Bible is so fun, guys, for real. But I did a little research this week, and it appears that pillar of salt is really a metaphor because she was, she's trailing behind, probably also was on fire, so she's probably kind of ashy, and they're in a very mineral and salt-rich region around the Dead Sea is where this story happens, so then her body's probably encrusted in salt and stuff, and so it was kind of like a metaphor to say she was a pillar of salt. But that's what happened, and the main point of this story was the angels kept telling her, don't look back. And she still did, and then she lost everything. Now she doesn't get to be with her family, and they're going off to safety, and she won't be with them. So when I read that story, we're thinking, okay, don't look back, but ultimately that story seems a little bit, I don't know, I always thought it was a little out there. Maybe I didn't think, it's not Noah's Ark level where we're going to learn so much from it, but actually the story is so important that Jesus himself even taught about it. And if we look in the Bible, I'm in Luke chapter 17, and Luke is in the New Testament. It's one of the first books in there, and it's one of the Gospels about Jesus and his life, and we can just learn so much from it. So I want you to go to Luke 17, verse 32. You follow along, be in the YouVersion app. I love it. And I'm reading in the New Living Translation, NLT. And this is what Jesus says to his disciples, who were like his friends, the people he was empowering to lead the church, lead his community after he was gone. He says, remember what happened to Lot's wife. So right there, no context or anything, remember what happened to Lot's wife? And everyone's like, oh, yeah. Isn't that so interesting that the story of Lot's wife must be so well known, passed down for generations, that everyone knows about her, which I think is super interesting. So he says, remember what happened to Lot's wife. If you cling to your life, you will lose it. And if you let your life go, you will save it. And I think Jesus has this way of saying something so complicated, something that seems backwards to us, in just one sentence. Like, if you cling to your life, you will lose it. What? That seems backwards from what we would think. And if you let your life go, you will save it. Which totally sounds opposite of anything we would think. But when we read that, especially how he's telling us to think about Lot's wife as we're reading that, maybe he's saying, like, if we're clinging to our life, our earthly life, the way things are now, like Lot's wife, she wanted to be back in their town. She was clinging to things there, even if it wasn't the best. If we're clinging to the way things are now, earthly things, the way we want our life to be, we're going to lose it. We're going to miss out on what we're really capable of, the incredible future and purpose that God has for you. But if we let go, if we have open hands, if we're kind of rolling with the punches and the interruptions, if we trade earthly things, those kind of things that matter, for having an eternal perspective and just living with eternity in mind, that's how we're going to save it. We're going to save our lives and get the full purpose that God has planned for us. Remember Lot's wife. She turned around and she wanted this town when God had something way better for her. Her whole family, the rest of them, made it to Zoar for the rest of this purpose, and their story continues. We can read more about them because they didn't end up losing it. They let go of the life they had there to move on for what God had planned for them. And it also makes me think about when you're driving, like this is me driving a car, and when you're driving, you can't be just staring at your rear view mirror, because that's me crashing into something. You'd probably crash into something, right? You can't drive forward if you're staring at your rear view mirror looking at what's behind you, unless you're driving backwards, which I guess you can do, but if you want to go anywhere forward, you can't just stare at your rear view mirror. And there's even a verse that kind of warns us against this in Ecclesiastes, which is also in the Old Testament. So we're kind of going boop, boop, boop today. So in the Old Testament, the book of Ecclesiastes, that is kind of like a book of wisdom. Maybe you've heard of Proverbs before. That's a really well-known book of wisdom by Solomon, who also wrote Ecclesiastes, and he's said to be the wisest man who's ever lived, so we better listen to him. So it's kind of like there'll be a lot of little sayings, just a verse that's kind of like a saying that you put on a poster, a keychain, anything, just gives you a little nugget of wisdom. And one verse in Ecclesiastes, it's chapter 7, verse 10, and this is in the New International Version, NIV. And Solomon writes, "Do not say, 'Why were the old days better than this?' For it is not wise to ask such questions." And I don't know about you, but I feel totally roasted after reading that verse, because I very often ask, why were the old days better than this? And he says right here, that is not wise to ask. I know definitely right after quarantine started, I'm like, why were the old days better than this? Or anytime I move, I'm like, so much better before. I'm always saying that when something happens. And I think it's sometimes we romanticize the past when an interruption comes and changes our present, right? Sometimes we romanticize our past when an interruption changes our present. And I mean, it's like, that's why we call it the good old days. Like right now, we would just be like, oh, that's the old days. But if some interruption changes everything, then it's suddenly the good old days. Like today. Right now, this is going to be tomorrow's past. And today is just a regular day, but I'm sure if an interruption came tomorrow and something terrible happened or something that just really changed everything for you, you would suddenly look back at today and be like, oh, why was the good old days so much better? Yesterday was the best day, and now everything has changed. We have a way of looking back at our past and kind of really emphasizing, romanticizing the really good things that happened when some interruption changes our present. We're like, it was so much better before. Like, even in quarantine, I've been saying, oh, why was it so much better before? But I used to never think going to the grocery store was a luxury. And now I just wish I could just go there with no mask and see all my friends. These things that I totally took for granted before, but now all of a sudden they're like the good old days, the gold of my life. So I think that's kind of like, we did a series a few weeks ago, or a few months ago now. Quarantine's lasting so long. But we did a series called Spiritual Bypass, which Dom also mentioned last week. And I think that's kind of like bypassing. We were talking about how bypassing is kind of like avoiding something that's kind of negative or an experience, something in your life that it's difficult to deal with and you don't want to deal with it. And that's kind of how we are when an interruption comes, and instead of facing it because it's difficult, we kind of just romanticize our past and think about how good that was, and we kind of want to relish in that. And I think sometimes we can do that with the future too, like when we're focusing on the future instead. And I mean, it's easy to read the verses we just read, like Jesus saying, remember what happened to Lot's wife. If you cling to your life, you're going to lose it. You're like, okay. And thinking about the angels telling Lot's wife, do not look back. And even the verse in Ecclesiastes saying, it's not wise to ask why the old days were better. So it's easy to read all those and think, okay, you're right. I will never look back again. Only look ahead to the wonderful future God has planned. I'm only going to look ahead. The future is all that matters. I'm not going to look back anymore. But I don't think that's what they meant either. When we look at Jesus' life, his whole life, we see this story right here, but there's so many stories in the Bible that we can read, even in the book of Luke that we were just in, but you can look at so many stories in the Bible about Jesus, just who he is, and when we read stories about him, I think maybe he wasn't telling us that we need to look back or look ahead. Maybe he was just telling us to look around, right? Maybe Jesus wasn't telling us to look back or look ahead. He was telling us to look around. Look around at your life, the interruptions that are around you, the things going on in your life right now, the people in your life. Even if you're in some interruptions right now, don't look back at what was happening before, or look ahead and try to be like, interruption is here. I'm looking at my dream future over here. Just look around and embrace the interruptions that you're in now. And I also think, we were just talking about driving. That's the same way when you're driving. You can't be staring at your rear view mirror, but you also can't be staring at your GPS, right? Anyone else have your phone is sitting right here with your GPS on it, and you're like, okay, there's turn up ahead, and it'll be 5 minutes, and then do another turn, right? We can't be driving and just staring at that, because that's also not safe. Same way in life, we can't be moving through our life and just focusing, obsessing over this thing that we want in the future that we're not paying attention to this interruption that's right in front of us. It makes me think about when you do a driving school, I guess. When I did driving school and they kind of teach you to do quick glances, okay, GPS, rear view mirror, and you're just little quick glances, because we need to do that too. You need to be able to a quick glance at your past, learn from your past, a quick glance at your GPS, your future, prepare for your future, but it's most important to just live in the present, right? We can learn from our past, prepare for our future, but we need to live in the present. So look at your rearview mirror, learn from the past, look at your GPS, prepare for your future, but ultimately be looking ahead and preparing for what's next, for this amazing plan that God has for you. And I was thinking about, also we face interruptions when we're driving, of course, just like in life. But especially if you're in San Marcos, this is for you. When you're driving and you face a train, those little boop, 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 and then you're about to be sitting there for a few minutes. Or has anyone got stuck when you're driving and a train literally gets stuck and stops on the tracks? I had the craziest time one time. I had my biology final 1 year at Texas State, and I was, going to class. I was actually in a bus, Texas State bus, and trying to go do my biology final, and this train was stuck on the tracks, literally no way I could go.
And so my friend and I got off the bus and started like walking, trying to like run to get to class. We're trying to call my professor, like, we can't miss the final, we have to pass this class, and trying to get there. And that time, that train was a huge delay for me, right? Anyone ever been in the car and you have to be to work by a certain time, a train comes, or construction, that's for everyone in Texas, or someone cuts you off, something, an interruption happens, and it's like, it's delaying my time. I'm not going to get there on time. But sometimes when you're just, going to a friend's house or going to run an errand, like you don't really care about the time, and a train comes, you're like, whatever. I can sit here for a few minutes, it doesn't matter. Isn't that so interesting how our perspective is different? I think that if you're living for the destination, you'll see an interruption as a delay. That's for driving and for life. But if you're living in the present, you'll see an interruption as just another part of your journey, right? If we're living for the destination, you'll see an interruption as a delay. But if you're living in the present, you'll see an interruption as just another part of your journey, something new, and that's how you're going to get growth from it. And I know for me, one time when I moved from Ohio to Texas, I did not have that perspective at all. I definitely had my destination in mind. I had this amazing plan of going to college with all my friends, graduating with them, and then we go to college, we're roommates, we're going to join clubs at college, it'll be amazing. This interruption came and changed my destination, and I was not too happy about it. I definitely was saying, this is not even delaying my life plan, it is ruining my whole life plan forever. I was so upset. Of course, that's what I thought. I was drama. I was 17. And eventually, y'all, this is probably my biggest regret, is because I was so angry and not willing to embrace that interruption that I pretty much made no friends my whole senior year of high school. I wasn't really involved at my school here in Texas, and I also was so upset about my whole college destination being changed that I didn't look into any schools in Texas. I decided to go to Texas State because I could commute, and I didn't even visit campus or anything before coming here. So I just was like, whatever, I'll just go to Texas State and just drive there, whatever. And even once I came to Texas State, I wasn't really too keen on making friends or anything, until eventually I realized I've been fighting this interruption for a year and a half, and I'm starting to feel really lonely. And it's exhausting to keep living in the past. My friends in Ohio had moved on without me. They were on with their life, and I was still trying to live in the past, and no one else was living in the past with me. Everyone else was moving on with the present, living their life. So I started getting more involved at Texas State, and then I made my own 10-year life plan, right? I was like, this is the solution. I had this 10-year life plan. I'm looking at my GPS. I am ready to go. Then I met Lance, who's now my husband, and he definitely interrupted my life plan because it did not involve anything about boys or getting married. So definitely my plan was thrown off, but I started living in the present now, and it is better than I ever expected. Sometimes it just is when we start to see interruptions as not a delay, but just a new part of our journey. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we are constantly comparing different seasons of our life to each other, like, high school was so fun, and college is hard, or like, college was great, now I have to work all the time, or like, I miss being in a relationship and now I'm single. If we're just comparing different things, it's not honoring all of them, because every different part of your journey, every chapter, every season, everything has led to where you are now and the person that you are now. So every week we do a challenge, and here's your challenge for this week. It's all about, we're going to be in our journey together. You can put in the chat if you're going to accept this week's challenge, and we can just be in it together. We love to be in the mess with each other, in the interruptions with each other. But this week I want you to think, instead of looking back or looking ahead, look around at the interruptions that you're in right now. And what can you do to embrace those? Okay? Instead of looking back or ahead, we're going to look around at these interruptions. Maybe you're in more than one interruption. We're going to look at those and be present in them this week. And what can you do to embrace those? So I challenge you to text in. You can text us. You can text 97000. That's who you're texting. And what you're texting is Heart Challenge, one word. So text Heart Challenge to 97000. We'll send you the challenge so you can save it on your phone and reference it throughout the week. And you'll be able to follow up with us on Thursday. We'll send you another question to kind of be thinking through. We would love to chat with you. Some of our leaders will text you back, so you actually can have a whole conversation with us, which is super cool. So we would love to be in that with you. Put a message in the chat if you are up for this challenge this week. I would absolutely love to be in it with you guys. In fact, I think I will also text in right now. And while I'm doing that, I also would love for us to just pray and close out this morning together. So grab your pet's hand, grab your friend's hand, grab ghost hand if you're by yourself, I guess. And let's pray. Hey God, thank you so much for this wonderful day. Thank you that we're able to connect on YouTube. Thank you that we are able to read different stories from the Bible and learn more about who you are and who you have created us to be. We just love you so much, and I just pray that you're keeping everyone safe and healthy this week. Help us to be in the interruptions, to slow down and not look back, not look ahead, but just look around at the incredible life you've given us right in this moment. We love you so much, and we're grateful for everything in our lives. Amen. Thank you guys for hanging out with me this morning, and I will see you so soon, hopefully. Bye.
I'm so grateful when you guys are able to be online and watching this with us, to be a part of this. We're still in this together. We're still a community. So it's very, very cool to be able to watch these together, to chat together, and to be able to carry this with us throughout the week, to know that we're kind of all thinking the same thing with these messages and kind of learning and growing together. It's really, really cool to be able to do that with you guys. I want to take just a moment to address something that we sometimes do here on Sundays at the Heart, and that's talking about our financial giving. Financial giving is an opportunity that you have a choice to step into, right? It's so important for us here at the Heart that giving, serving, reading the Bible, singing, all of that is never required. It's never something you're supposed to do. It's something that you choose to step into. And when we choose to do it, that's when it grows our faith. It grows us in our journey. It helps us to take steps forward as we are ready. Because if I'm pushing you along a journey, you're not really enjoying the journey. But if you are taking the steps and you are seeing what these steps are doing for you, your faith, your family, your finances, your job, your relationships, then that's when you can really see what God is capable of through you and in you. So today, if you want to choose to be a part of financial giving today, it's very easy to be a part of it. You can go to theheart.church/give, or you can download the Church Center app, plug in the information for the Heart there, and sign up there. It's super easy to give and be a part of that. And along with that, what we really want to do is be a resource for our community as well. So if you go to theheart.church/updates, we have a form that you can fill out there, or anyone that you can recommend to go there, where if someone needs help, resources, finances, we were able to help a family this past week with their utility bills. It was going to be cut off, and we were able to assist them in that and keep the lights on for the family. And that we're able to do that because of the resources that we have due to your generosity. So not only is it a place where people can come and learn and grow in their faith, it's a place where people can get help and assistance that they need practically in their lives when it comes to things like utility or groceries or whatever it is. So thank you so much for your generosity, for being a part of a community that loves to take care of the people around us. So before we go today, I want to pray for the offering, pray for our generosity, for what God is doing through us, through the Heart, and in our heart. So let's do it together. God, thank you so much for everything that you have given us, for the generosity that you have showed us with the faith that we have, the generosity of your love, of your peace, of your grace that we're able to step into each and every day. I pray that we'd be able to use our resources to share with those around us, to take care of our families, to make sure we have food for the people that we love. And we're so grateful to be able to have the same spirit of generosity that you have in us. So we thank you for that, and we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, y'all, I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and a great rest of your week. We'll see you at community night. Otherwise, I hope you have so much fun. Love you.